¿Qué tal, queridos amigos? ¿Cómo andamos? Espero que bien. Bueno, acá estamos con una leyenda, ni más ni menos que el señor Mike Muir de Suicidal Tendencies, que nos va a estar visitando muy pronto junto a MADBALL también acá en el Teatro Flores. Ahora vamos a pasar en inglés. Mike, again, really nice to see you. How are you today?
Good, good, very good.
Really, really nice to chat with you. A big fan of your music. And well, actually, I was going to start, of course, with the Argentinian gig, but I realized a couple of minutes ago I had a Black Sabbath shirt on. And well, I wanted to know, don't know if you've spoken about it. How did you take the news of Ozzy's passing last year? Of course, you've done a therapy with Infectious Grooves. You have the song Club Like Ozzy as well with Suicidal. So, how was that moment like? Do you remember?
I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it. Robert, who is in also in Infectious Grooves and
Hmm.
Metallica now, of course. Um, he went out there to go play the that last concert, um, which fortunately he was still alive to do it. I think it was a surprise for everybody how quick it happened afterwards. And Robert played with Ozzy for years. And he was the first person that took Infectious Grooves on tour besides doing the sonic therapy. And
Hmm.
so it went from being someone that, like, when you're a little, my brother is 5 years older than me. So he got me like Black Sabbath when I was 9 years old, so he could have it. It was for me, but he'd buy me records he wanted. And someone that was not real, as when you're young and people in bands, they're not real. And then to be able to meet them and do all that was incredible. And yeah, it was definitely sad. I think though the good side of it is he had quite the send off, and you know uh, if, if he was able to see it, he would see there was a lot of love, and I think that's all you could ask for.
Okay, great. Nice to hear your thoughts on his influence and his legacy as well. So, well, of course, the main motive of this interview is you returning with suicidal tendencies to Argentina. You've been many times here. Well, many people remember that iconic show you gave at the Estadio Obras back in the 90s. Well, you've come many times as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
How do you sense the audience when you return? Like, do you feel things change? Does it stay the same? How do you feel it coming back?
Um, I think, things always change, and depending upon who you talk to, it's good or bad. And there's always the situations where I've always found the vast majority of people that I've met have been great. And which is, you know, a lot of places in the world, but I've always had a really good time in Argentina, and people have been really cool. The love of music, their ability to express the excitement, not really worrying about what other people think. They're there for the moment, and they make the most of the moment. I think that's incredible. And doing music, that's what we try to do, is make the most of the moment. And to do that together, I think that's incredible. And so, the other stuff, the politics, I try to stay away from all of that.
Mhm.
I believe in people, I don't believe in politicians. And that goes from the first time we were there. I think there was like having over 100% inflation monthly, and it was really crazy how politics can really mess up people, you know, and good people that really can't do anything. So there's been all kinds of story. I was there when homie was throwing $5 million over the fence, and there's always things you just go, man, and that's why I hate politics. I don't care how you define yourself. To me, it's more important what kind of a person you are. You're a good person, and do you do the right
Mhm.
things for the right reasons, and that's what we need more of.
Absolutely. And well, this time you're coming with MADBALL. And I found a quote you gave at an interview, I think a couple of years ago, where you mentioned that they've got their East Coast things, you got your West Coast things. So in your books, what are those things that characterize each coast? Uh, if you have some insights on that.
Well, I think that one is obviously we grew up on the beach, and it was the skate surf. That whole environment was a huge part of what we were. and music was kind of like the soundtrack to skating, surfing, or BMX, riding and that kind of action sports. And we're very spread out. And, New York is just like packed in, millions of people, no place to breathe. So it creates a whole different environment and stuff. But I think there's a lot of similarities with the attitude and the way people think. And that was one of the things that the first time I went to New York, I was like 17, and realized I go, there's a lot of people here that if I grew up with them, I'd be friends, and a lot of people here, if I grew up with them, I would hate them, you know. And that's the New York kind of a thing. There's good and there's bad, and they're very proud to do what they are. And I'm not saying that in music. I'm just saying in general. And the
Mhm.
people and stuff. There's California people a little bit more like you know, on their they got a little more room, so they don't have to be 24/7,
Right.
And but I've found that like actually knew a lot more people in New York bands than Hollywood bands or LA bands for that matter and stuff, because I think there's a certain honesty, you know, uh they're gonna say what they think. They're not gonna worry about how you interpret it, your feelings. And that's the way I was brought up,
Mhm.
very old school, be honest. People can't handle the truth. That's their problem. But don't be an asshole when you say it. Say it because it's something that you think is important, and there's a good reason for it.
Okay, that's great. Wanted to speak a bit about you put out a song last year, Adrenaline Addict. I really love the bass work on that track is amazing. Well, the whole song is great, the solos, your vocals. I imagine we may get to listen to that song live this time.
Um, not we're not going to play that live because
Okay,
Nisha's not going. Nisha went with us on the Metallica tour, and so we were playing it live.
right. Yeah.
But it doesn't have the same thing without her vocals. It kind of definitely apart. So
Mhm.
she's not coming to these shows, so we aren't going to play it.
I imagine you're not a big fan of backing vocals or backing tracks, those kind of.
No, no, not at all. And
Yeah.
we just were playing with a few events where they had some bands, and there was just so much Pro Tools, so much backing tracks that it was like, this is insane. You know, you're
Yeah.
looking at the people, quote unquote, playing, and it's really bad. And I think in quote unquote rock or hard rock, there's a lot of that, way too much, you know.
Hmm.
And it's like, listen to the record, and but anyhow, that's not what we're about.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because when you started back in the day, of course, you were quite kind of questioned for mixing certain genres or putting solos in punk rock or crossover, whatever. And well, nowadays it seems like that experimentation, or so to say, as you're saying, like putting a lot of electronics or backing tracks on live shows are kind of being really accepted. As you said, I imagine you're not that much of a fan of even hardcore bands or metalcore bands. You're not that much of a fan of bands doing that, I imagine.
No, and I don't know if people don't know it or they just don't care, but it's also too, it's kind of just the way that I came from, and the attitude that I have. And the first, I've said many times, the first punk show I went to, I was like, oh, this is the best thing, and it was just the in your face, no, just bring what you got. The next week I went to another one. It was the worst thing I'd been at because they were just absolutely terrible. So it's not just the style, it's what people do. And to me though, that takes away a lot of the human aspect. And I mean, the people have the whole debate with the AI thing too.
Mm.
And a lot of times you'll be put in the category where you're old. But it's a lot of things are inevitable. But the stuff that I've always liked the most, a lot of times is when people are being creative and they're doing things not because they think people like it. They don't care if people like it. And that's why it's cool. And some of you listen to stories about, old records or whatever, and some of the best things, identifiable things, are actually mistakes that someone wanted them to correct. And they're like, no, leave that. And it's actually cool. So I look at that when things are just too polished, too shined. It's like, it's not pretty to me at all.
Hmm.
I'm not that person, you know.
Okay. And well, you mentioned AI. I mean, does it scare you in the future to think that maybe even this could arrive to punk rock or those kind of genres, or do you think that will add extra value to the bands that are actually performing their instruments live?
My problem, I guess, on a humanistic level is I think when it comes down to choices, if you put someone in a room and you give them a choice of, hey, you're going to have to run over this, climb over this, go 3 miles over here, and turn around, swim through the crocodiles, and then come back and you could have this, or you can push this button right here and you could have three of them. People are going to push that button to get three of them, And I think sometimes the journey is more important than the end result. And I think people are losing the journey. And in that journey, you find out whether, excuse me, things are actually worth it. And then you have to adapt and you test yourself and it creates creativity and things like that. When you give up all power and creativity, I think that would eliminate a lot of the greatest things that humans have done, you know,
Right.
and then you just become idol worshipers. And that in a sense, not to sound all, theatrical, but that scares me more than anything because I think there's nothing greater than, when people are at their best, and whether they overcome whatever obstacles they have, this and that. I think that's amazing. And I think it carries over into other things. So that's my concern. And then of course people can get into the philosophical or the, you know, um, the technology taking over, but we've had that debate for a long time too. So I just hope that, people don't lose themselves before they find themselves.
Right. Well, I find it very interesting because without this process that you're mentioning, for example, maybe in the 90s, Suicidal wouldn't have put out records like The Art of Rebellion, for example, or what you did in next in your different project that was stepping out of the box or experimenting a bit, right? You had that need to expand maybe on something that hadn't been done yet, maybe.
Yeah, I think for us, we've always kind of taken the approach like doing records or like chapters in a book, and you don't just rewrite the same chapter. And there's certain bands that are very successful, but every record, it's like you couldn't tell if it was 10 years, 20 years, it all kind of
Hmm.
sounds, you know who that is. That's cool, if that's what it is. But for us, I think we want everything to be different. We're not doing it for people to like it. It's like if you're a cook and you just want people to like things, you add more sugar. But we're not the sugar band, We like spices, we like some heat, we like some challenges. And sometimes that's not going to be for what people like. And over the years, I've had so many people, saying that, wow, man, I apologize. When that record came out, I thought it sucked. And 10 years later, someone was playing, so I was like, whoa, what's that? And
Right.
listen to it, and it's like, I absolutely love it. And, or they say, hey, I knew this song, and I was like, it's all right. And then something happened, and the lyrics just sat out, and it was like, they go, it's a completely different song. And, it's where people are at in life too. And so, you break an arm, you can't give somebody penicillin, penicillin saved a lot of lives, but it's not going to fix a broken arm. It's not going to get rid of cancer. It's not going to, take away people's mental difficulties and stuff. So I think there's no one size fits all, treat everybody the same kind of a thing.
Hmm. And do you feel like nowadays people still want to be challenged? I mean, do you think that with your bands you still have the, I imagine of course you have it, but you still need to challenge people, or do you feel like they need to hear maybe those that kind of thrash punk kind of stuff they like, or the safe place they find maybe with your music? How do you feel about that?
I think for us, one of the things is we always said we don't want to be a nostalgic band, you know, and we always adapt. We do things differently. We've had a lot of different people in the band. And one of the things I found is like, especially when we do like festivals, there'll be a lot of people that have never seen the band before, but they've seen, people wearing the hats or the shirts or this or
Right.
that. And they just assume that's not their music, that wasn't the circle in. And they see it and then they're like, oh wow, this is not what I expected. And they go, I expected to just see this old band that was just kind of standing there and, going through the motions. And then you see it, especially with people when they have maybe their kids or the younger people, and they're just tripping. And I think for them, that a lot of them, they realize it's like, hey, this isn't just another band. You go to a festival and there's four stages and there's band after band after band. And then they see Suicidal and they go, this is different. And, you know, my dad always said the best way to be different is to be better. And we are an alternative to the alternative, I think. And we're not going to be for everybody, but we're not going to put sugar on it to make it a little, easier for someone to eat, because we're going to cause the diabetes and the high cholesterol. We're in there to like get in your face, and we kind of have the approach the way my brother was. He's gonna get in your face when you fuck up, and you're like, "Oh man, that's not fair." And it's like, "Nah, you're being stupid." You know, don't be stupid. Take responsibility. And that's kind of the in the face kind of approach that we have, and try to be honest. And well, life's not always going to be easy. It's going to be a lot harder than we want. There's a lot of people. That's why the lottery does so well. People are hoping to change their life without doing any changes,
Hmm.
and there's so many people that are, like I said, pushing for shortcuts. And the bottom line is there'll be a lot of people with smiling faces trying to sell you things. But at the end of the day, you got to lay your head on the pillow and you got to be responsible for what you do. And you're the one that's got to get you out of bed in the morning and take on the world. So, it's a different belief system, but it's the hardest thing to believe in is yourself. But the best thing to believe in yourself in it is yourself.
Well, I think also all of this you're saying is one of the reasons you are so respected in different subgenres. For example, from well, Metallica, as you mentioned recently, to Blink 182, to Limp Bizkit. I mean, from a huge span of musical directions that have been influenced, in a way by your music or your way of, I know, your attitude. I mean, do you find that hard to believe that in so all of these musical styles and backgrounds, you still are like a common thread to a lot of these bands?
Well, in the same sense too, you take it like, when me and Robert got into Suicidal, and he was in more bass kind of oriented bands, and there wasn't
Yeah.
really heavy bands. And so I was like, we started Infectious Grooves, and our first drummer was Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction, and then we got Josh Freese when he was 17, who's and most recently Nine Inch Nails, Foo Fighters,
Yes.
Sting, Guns N' Roses, everybody. Then we replaced him with Brooks Wackerman that was 14 when he was 14. And he's in Avenged Sevenfold now. And then Ron Bruner, which is Thundercat's brother, who played with George Duke, Stanley Clark, Prince, and stuff. And then, we got Thundercat on, Robert and bass, who went into Ozzy and Metallica. And then um, Thundercat, who's like doing a huge solo thing that got a bunch of Grammy nominations, did a bunch of the Kendrick Lamar, all kinds of plays on all kinds of stuff besides his solo career and stuff. And and the last drummers, Grayson, who's in Sepultura.
Yeah.
We had Dave Lombardo was in Slayer. Um, Brandon Pertzbarn, who's now in Offspring, and it goes on and on and on. And so I think one of the things is we've got a lot of people playing when they were very young, and then even Ty Trujillo, Robert's son.
Yes.
He's been playing with us for 6 years. He's an absolute beast on bass, and and then also has an understanding because he grew up in sauce when he was young, and the whole legacy thing of that, and knows what it's like, especially from our area. So there's a lot of understanding about what suicidal is and why we're different than other people and why we want to stay different.
Okay, yeah, a huge amount of great musicians, for sure. You've worked with, and of course, we respect that legacy. And well, we've spoken about what's going on with different musical styles nowadays. I wanted to ask you, since you play lots of festivals as well with different kind of artists, what's the no need to name names if you don't want, or don't no one comes to mind, but anything in particular that has caught your eye lately, musically? Anything, it could be anything. What was the last
Uh,
thing that really caught your attention?
Actually, the last quite a bit, I've just been in the studio and doing like four different things. So when I get in the studio, I don't listen to anything else. I
Hmm.
just what we're doing, and they're all completely different things. I have in July, Psycho Michael,
Yeah.
that's a solo record coming out, and it's gonna have some like new suicidal, infectious grooves, all these different projects and stuff that I was in before, did different songs, different things, and Psycho Star, which is the new thing that just doing now with Nisha and Josh Paul, who used to be um, play bass after Robert in Suicidal for a few years, and and then we're in the studio working on Suicidal in between that,
Great.
and a couple other things and stuff. So I think and then working on Nisha's record, and which is completely different. And so I like we have Pro Tools. Everybody, a lot of people have had it for a while, and we've always recorded music. I've always recorded music, and sometimes people will be over and talking about something, and I'll pull up a song, and they're like, "Wait, when did that come out?" I go, "Nah, it didn't." Like, when are you putting it out? I'm not. And they're like, it's one of those ones. I think that like music is. I don't never done drugs. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. But music could be the best drug,
Hmm.
and it could be the worst one. And so I love music. I don't necessarily love trying to sell music, and if I was wanted to be a music salesman, I would do it quite differently than what we do it. But I love what I love, and I know that when I've heard the music, you hear music everywhere. There's, in elevators or whatever, you're on hold, whatever, music's everywhere, but you just don't really think about it. It doesn't do anything. And the few songs when I was younger, that someone that I heard for the first time and absolutely loved. I remember what I was doing, and it was so much different than anything else, and that how that feeling to me was. And that's what I'd rather do, music like that, that someone that isn't mainstream or whatever, it hits and hits them hard than just everybody like, oh, dude, I like that. Oh, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, really looking forward to listening to all of those new materials with the different projects. Well, Mike, as I said before, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time today. And of course, I'll be at the show in just a few weeks, actually.
Cool.
And I wanted to
Yes.
know if you have any message you'd like to give to your Argentinian fans, anything you'd like to say before returning.
Oh, I mean, we're definitely excited about it, and I say that two ways. One, every time when people do interviews, I usually say what I shouldn't say, but but everybody says, "Oh, I love it," and generally, I've had a great experience every time I've been there. I have several friends there, and it's always cool to be someplace. My dad said, when you go somewhere, you can't act like you belong, but when people accept you and welcome you, that's the best feeling in the world. And to be someone where when I was a kid, we didn't travel, we had a station wagon and we drive up the coast, or something and go to the beach. That was the holiday. Never would have thought that I'd be able to travel around the world and to be in places and go there and people to be so gracious and accepting and, showing me like, take me around, showing me different things. That's not, there's no tourist thing. There's nothing like that. And that's massively appreciated. And so it's like every time met new people, friends, bringing more friends. And that's what I look forward to the most. And of course, the
Fantastic.
show.
Fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to the show. It'll be a great one for sure. Thanks again, Mike, and we'll see you soon.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
All right. Peace.